Most people with that understanding, it's not that you have a faith problem. Your faith is sufficient to see the dead raised, blind eyes open, or whatever. It's not a faith problem, it's an unbelief problem. Now see, that immediately confuses some people because they think, now wait a minute, if I've got unbelief, well then I wasn't really believing. Most people think that faith and unbelief are mutually exclusive. If you can discern any unbelief, then that's because you don't have any faith. And if you have faith, well then you couldn't have any unbelief because they exclude each other. That is not what the Scriptures teach. I've already quoted that verse over in Mark chapter 11, verse 23, and it says there that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. You have to speak to the mountain in faith and not doubt. It's obvious that Jesus is saying, use your faith, and then in the same breath he says, and don't doubt. Why would he say don't doubt if being in faith automatically excluded doubt? See, that's not a right concept. You can believe and disbelieve at the same time. As a matter of fact, this same story about Jesus casting the demon out of this boy who had seizures, the same thing is recorded in Mark chapter 9. And in Mark chapter 9, when they brought the boy to Jesus, it says in verse 20 that they brought him unto him, and when he saw him straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed foaming. And he asked the father, How long is it ago since this came unto him? And he said, Of a child. And oftentimes it hath cast him into the fire, and often into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Boy, there's a lot here. I'm going to come back to this later. I'm not going to deal with it right now. Jesus said unto them, If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. He said, I believe, I've got faith, but I've got unbelief too. Now see, people that think that, no, if you've got any unbelief, you didn't have any faith. They would say, no, that's wrong. But how did Jesus respond to him? Jesus didn't say, no, that's a stupid statement. You missed it, you misunderstood. Nope, Jesus didn't counter it. He let that statement stand, and he went ahead and cast the demon out of this boy, and the boy was well. See, you can believe and disbelieve at the same time. In the 5th chapter of the book of Mark, I won't take time to turn over there and read it, but if you'll look it up, you'll find out that when Jesus went to heal Jairus' daughter, that there was a messenger came from the home and said, Your daughter's dead, don't trouble the master anymore. And when Jesus heard this, he turned and immediately said, Only believe. Why would he say only believe if believing was automatically guaranteed that you were only believing? You couldn't have any unbelief with it. See, here's 3 instances that I've given you, and there's more. But you can believe and disbelieve at the same time. It's like if you had a weight right here in front of me. You could hook a horse up to that weight, and if he was strong enough, he could exert enough power to move or to drag that weight. But if you hooked a horse up to the other side, pulling in the opposite direction, and if it was a horse of equal strength, then you could have this tremendous force exerted, but the net effect would be 0. It wouldn't move because it's counterbalanced by the opposing force. It's negated. It's canceled. And see, this is what the Lord is saying. He says, guys, you had faith, but the problem is you also have unbelief, and your unbelief is negating your faith. Because if your faith, if it was pure, if it wasn't counterbalanced by this unbelief, you could take a faith as small as a mustard seed and just speak to a mountain and tell it to be cast into the sea, and it would depart. You don't need great faith, you just need a pure faith that isn't diluted or polluted by any unbelief. Now that's a major, major point. You know, I'm running out of time on today's program, and I'm not going to be able to continually make these points and explain everything, but in my next program and in these materials that I've got, I'll give you some examples about where I believed. And I believed, and I mean, I stepped out in faith, and I have done some radical things that you don't do if you don't believe. I know that there's people that will call my motives into question and think, well, you were just foolish, you were presumptuous, but you know, you can say what you want to. I believed. I was expecting supernatural results, and I didn't see them. I saw the opposite. And for a long period of time, it confused me, just like these disciples. Lord, why didn't it work? I know I was believing you. You don't do some of the things that I've done publicly, trying to minister healing to people, if you don't believe it, if you aren't expecting positive results. And I knew that there was faith present, and yet I didn't see the right results. And it perplexed me for a long time until I finally saw that the problem was, yes, I believed, and yes, I had faith, and yes, I had faith that in the past had even seen people raised from the dead. But the difference was this time I was countered by unbelief, fear about what other people thought, about how I was going to look. And that unbelief negated my faith. You know, in tomorrow's program, I'm going to give you an example that I think will make this point very well, and it'll help you. But I tell you, this teaching that I've been doing on healing, I believe everybody needs it. If you don't need it, you know someone who does. I encourage you to get it. And remember that we've got a better health care package where you not only get the teaching on healing, but you get these DVDs of testimonies, a lot of good things. Listen as our announcer gives you that information.
Andrew's complete teaching titled God Wants You Well is available in a brand new book for